Hi there, and welcome back to my channel, Mike's Music Corner, where I like to keep things real. You're about to watch the second part of a two-part video in my series of upgrading my Fender Squier Affinity Telecaster. Anyway, I'm going to try to keep this short and simple today. Just a quick recap of why we are where we are. My local luthier, Sean, discovered during the process of him working on my guitar for this project I'm doing that the neck had a back bow in the middle of the neck, and so he took remediation steps. The first part was all about pretty much explaining what he was going to do, and the second part here that you're about to watch is all about the actual work being done and you watching it in real time. It's actually always pretty fascinating to me how he managed to save the neck and make it musically useful. Anyway, that's what this video is all about. I hope you enjoy it, and we'll go from there.
Welcome back. I've spent probably another, hour and a little bit extra on this.
And by the way, I'm paying for that hour, so.
Yeah, which I appreciate. And what I did was I left a single fret untouched after the leveling. I polished, I should say I crowned and I polished the rest of the frets.
Okay. They look good, actually. So.
Yeah, you can tell.
Yeah.
So if you look up in the light, though, you will see there's one fret that has not been crowned or polished. You can see that flat top across this whole fret right there. You see that?
Yeah, I do.
So what I've done is since we last spoke and since we were last on the camera, where I had the leveling beam, I did a lot of leveling, and eventually I determined that I had leveled the frets, to be honest, not perfectly level, but as low as I'm willing to go because we're running out of fret.
Yeah.
We're gonna try to compensate, but I was able to improve things by leveling a lot of material out of these frets here. Yeah. Then I went through, all of the frets had this look to them at that point because the tops have been chopped off, right?
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Yeah, the first fret was barely touched.
This is chopped off because of your leveling, basically.
Because of the leveling, exactly. The first fret was barely touched. It maintained most of its height. I did leveling essentially until I hit the first fret because that was the lowest point in the back bow.
Okay.
When I was looking up in this area, I was noticing we were getting a little thin up here, so I didn't want to level any more out of these frets in the middle of the neck.
Okay.
So after that point, after we chopped off the frets, I go and I start crowning the fret, which is to reshape it to that round shape, right?
To put a crown on it.
To put a crown on it, to reshape it to that round shape without lowering the overall height of the fret.
Yeah.
So, and that can be a little bit tricky, but there's processes for that. So what we've got right now is a bunch of frets that I've already crowned and then polished afterwards.
You got this one here so we can see you do it?
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I just would like to make a comment. So I crowned and polished my frets before I gave them to Sean myself, trying to learn to do it my amateur way. And there is no way my results were like your results. Well, these are beautiful.
Well, thanks.
So, yeah,
I
did okay, but I didn't realize, in the right hands, it could even be so much better. So,
well, it's just tools and processes,
and experience.
Yeah, all those things.
They look beautiful.
Well, thanks. We're gonna get that last one.
Yeah, get that last one, and
so I'll show you the steps that would go through for crowning an individual fret.
All right, so we're gonna start. We're gonna do a close-up now, folks.
Great. So we've got the fret here. I'm holding my light on it in such a way that it reflects, and I can clearly see the top of the fret from my angle, right? Just like I had you holding it.
Yeah.
So I'm watching that, and I'll take a crowning file. In this instance, I'm using this file. This is not the file I use for every single job. I just think it is pretty good profile for the frets we're working with.
Okay.
And I like the way this file cuts. I'm going to crown this fret, and essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this file, which, just to be clear, in case the camera can't tell, it's concave on the inside of this edge. Either edge is concave. So I'm just going to use one side, and I'm trying to shave off the corners of the flat area to reduce that flat area to a very thin strip. Right now it's a wide strip. I'm going to thin it out. I don't want it to disappear if I can help it, but I want to thin it out. I didn't have to practice for years to be able to see this or anything.
Yeah.
It's just a matter of getting a good light at the right angle and knowing what to look for. And once you can see it, it's very obvious. now I've thinned out the line pretty good. I can get it skinnier if I really want to be, extremely precise about this. There's really no reason not to, but I think the returns are probably diminishing at a point, because the thinner you make the crown of the fret, the quicker that crown point will wear out again.
I think the good news must be that whatever I did to these frets, when I crowned them and I polished them and I dressed them, I didn't ruin them.
No,
apparently,
no,
because you managed to still do this work here.
So now I'm looking for a piece of 200 or 320 grit, which is what I have here. There are lots of different methods for this. We're about to start polishing. And all that is to say is, first I'm removing the scratches that I've created with the crowning file. The cuts left by a crowning file like this are, I'm going to try to make sure I'm in camera. Crowning files like this, the cuts left by these are quite deep. So there's lots of ways to do this. The shop I was trained at up in Colorado used a method of side to side. I still use that for lots of frets as well. I find this one a little bit quicker, and for this situation I'm going to use this method. We're going to use a crowning file with some sandpaper in the groove. This is adhesive back sandpaper. This is a Chris Fleming special. This is just a method of smoothing the sides. I'm going to try to polish essentially the shoulders of the fret and reduce that line even further towards the center, and I'm very controlled. So all I'm doing is going along the shoulders. What's happened is the metal has built up into the sandpaper and sort of essentially raised the grit. I mean, this is now cutting much less than it was.
Right.
I can use that to lean in and kind of polish,
Gotcha.
a little more aggressively.
Yeah.
So I'll just kind of use that to really focus that line in and start to get it to disappear in a controlled way. It's still present, but just barely, and there's some spots where it's vanishing. I'm going to go up to 400 grit now. And the goal of this is to, of course, polish the entire fret without effectively reducing the height. In reality, I think the height probably gets reduced by some amount, but it's actually like far less than 1/1000th of an inch. Like, because we're measuring these things most of the time.
It looks kind of negligible.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So now I'm doing the same thing. I'm leaning into either side, come forward. Just trying to polish the top now. I can feel that the paper has gummed up with the metal, and so it's just kind of polishing now. So now I've polished with 400. I'm going to go over to my micro mesh here. So I'm starting at what micro mesh considers 2400. This is pretty worn out paper. It's just what I can tell by feel is going to be good for polishing from this point on. So. So I've got 24 down, I'm going to go up to 32. One of the things I'll do while I'm doing this is, and I already did this with these earlier, but I'll come along and just kind of rub the corner. And this is getting hot while I'm doing this. I'm using enough pressure and speed to,
Interesting. Friction.
Yeah, it's a big part of polishing and buffing and all that stuff. Every part of this step, I'm trying to use enough pressure to generate heat, honestly. Nothing groundbreaking here. I'm going to buff it. What I'm going to do now is remove a lot of this tape. This stuff's been on here for 2 days, which for this particular kind of finish, I know it's not going to cause us any problems. But all of this, like, I can get rid of this dirty stuff, this discoloration. So this is naphtha, or essentially lighter fluid. I use this pretty indiscriminately on guitars in all.
Just don't light on fire, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. It won't hurt anything at all. So you can use this to clean just about any kind of tape-based adhesive off of a guitar.
As you remove the tape, it's looking so nice there. So now the wood's coming out with the nice shiny frets.
The striping from the tape and the grime, we're going to clean all that in a minute.
Sure.
And all the stuff on the side that you see as well. Mostly with naphtha. It'll get it right off. So these little spots you see are actually from when we super glued frets.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
And we're going to get rid of those now. This is a fresh razor blade, extremely common. Yeah, so there's technique involved when you're going to use a razor blade like this. You have to use enough pressure to not jump over a fret like I did. And then I'll oil it. I like Dr. Ducks. That's basically it. And then I'm just going to slap the whole thing on the buffer again.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, you know, and that's,
Boy,
yeah, so you get that
I
all.
tell you, for a Squire Affinity Telecaster fretboard, it looks pretty darn good.
Yeah, it looks pretty darn good.
Sean is starting to put the body back on the neck, or the neck back on the body, maybe is a more correct way to say it. He'll probably just restring that up and
Yeah,
we'll...
that's pretty much it. I mean, nothing crazy here. I'm trying to avoid touching the lovely frets. I'll tell you why I do want to string it up is because I'm curious to see how it
about
looks
the bow. Yeah,
under
yeah.
tension.
Yeah, okay, of
Because
course.
we've got an entirely loose truss rod.
Yeah.
We've got frets that have been leveled to an inch of their life, you know, which, as I should explain, this is not the preferred method.
Yeah.
Ideally, we would have refret this guitar, but it doesn't make financial sense in every case to do that. And for the purposes of demonstration, this was a good enough guitar to do this to. And so you're going to end up with a much better playing and sounding guitar than you would have. Yeah, they're nines.
Okay.
They're nines. I can just tell grabbing this string, that's a 9.
It's just crazy.
Just that.
How you have that touch
Just the
now after all these
slinkiness.
years. It's like, huh.
It's funny. 10s and 11s, grabbing them out of the packet, I don't feel so much of a difference, but 9s, absolutely. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
it's barely there. They make them as low as 7s for some folks.
Well, I mean, the legend is that Billy Gibbons plays 7s all his career, so
Yeah.
I thought, well, good enough for him, it's good enough for anybody. Well, what's the verdict on the back though?
Well, there's a tiny bit of neck relief, so we're kind of winning.
That's a good sign.
Yeah. I would put 10s on it, and I think we'll get away with it. This is fun to play right now, but it's too low. Just needs a little more clearance. I go in 30 seconds of an inch, because that's just how I was taught.
Yeah.
But it depends how you're measuring. It depends on a lot of stuff. So I've set the outer ease to a height that I consider pretty reasonable. It's basically 2 30 seconds on either.
2 30 seconds.
Yeah, it's basically 2 30 seconds. There's a tiny bit extra on the treble side right now. And now that I think about it, we just leveled the frets and I put fall away, so we probably don't need it. I'm gonna drop that a little. I'm just going, so the bottom of the string to the top of the fret is 2 30 seconds, meaning
Okay.
for my eye, I can see half of my line. So now what I'll do is I'll detune for the inner strings. I've got the ease where I want them height-wise.
Yeah.
Drop the tuning of the inner strings. Get my understring radius gauge. So this is a radius gauge where I can pull it up so that the outer strings are touching it. Get the middle four to not be touching it. And I'll just lower the strings until they buzz against that gauge.
Right,
So I'm
right.
playing the A string, drop it,
And you hold it down as far towards the bridge as you can.
Yep. and I'll just get it to buzz on my gauge. That one's already there. G is too high. So what this does is, like, assuming a perfect world where these frets have a perfect radius and everything is perfect, if I get the radius just right, like that at the bridge, then the headroom will be consistent across the strings.
Yeah.
Will buzz the same amount. Which I know sounds like a joke, but I mean it. It's I use that phrase quite a lot to describe guitar setup. You want things. You'll never get a guitar that never buzzes no matter what.
Yeah, that's my understanding.
Yeah, and that's just physics, because you hit a string hard enough and it vibrates, you know, and hits a piece of metal. Yeah, that just feels right away. That feels reasonable to my hand. So I'm not going to do anything. Just play that. Just kind of sit down, see how that feels in your hands.
I think it's nice.
I think so too.
I think I don't think it's too high for me. No, it's not too high at all for me.
I think when you set everything else up correctly, that kind of action feels comfortable. If you don't set everything else correctly, that action feels high. But if it ends up being too buzzy, we can adjust things a little bit, you know? And if it ends up never buzzing, we can drop it a little bit.
Yeah, feels good. to me.
Yeah, cool.
Feels good.
If I sit and play with a certain type of attack, I can make that buzz all day. But if I play like you're playing right now,
Yeah.
with a delicate kind of touch,
Yeah.
it'll never buzz. And even the buzzing sounds cool too. Like I don't mind a little string buzz.
Well,
you know, depending on what you're playing.
I consider that a form of distortion.
Yeah, it is. It's like a natural, you know, it sounds like you're digging in, you know?
Talked about before, pickups aren't all that bad, actually. Consider their ceramics.
Yeah, you may be surprised. You know, we may change the pickups, and you may decide you like these better. It's totally a preference thing.
And wouldn't that be something?
Yeah,
I hope that's not what happens.
yeah. It's an easy job. So.
What's that?
It's an easy job. You know, I swap Telecaster pickups in my sleep, man. It's you know, they're pretty common.
Yeah, it's feeling nice and easy to play.
Good. And if you want to try the other strings, I don't think it's a bad idea. You know, if you felt like trying the 11s, but if you want to leave these, it's working. You know, so looks like we'll get away with it.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna take it home.
Good. Yeah.
For sure.
And if you're bending strings a lot, it can be a shock.
That's a nice tone. I think.
Yeah. I've got 11s on.
I don't know what the amp is.
This is just a rumble. It's really a bass amp. I have it EQ'd so it sounds okay for a guitar. You know. I didn't buy this amp because it sounded good.
Is that, oh yeah.
I bought it because it fit under my bench. It's solid state $200 amplifier.
They tend to be kind of just a half step.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sounding sweet. It's looking sweet.
Yeah, I think it came out all right. It's you know, these frets are not going to have as long of a life as as they might have once had.
Well, but I'm an easy,
exactly.
you know, what would you call it?
I was going to say,
hobbyist player. It's not like I'm out there gigging every day in the world. And,
well, and you know, use a very intentionally light touch, which is just great. Those frets
no,
will
not
probably
intentionally.
last, you know.
It's just my I am. So.
Well, you know what I mean. Is it's you know, I just it's a compliment. Your touch is intentional. You know, you're fretting with good conscious thought and using just enough pressure and not too much. You know.
Yeah, I try.
That's important, and it'll keep your frets alive for a lot longer too. So, yeah, enjoy it.
Yeah, already do.
Cool.
So thank you for tuning in to this video. I hope you enjoyed watching Sean basically save the day and remediate my backbowed neck to make it musically playable for me. So the next video you're going to watch is all about changing out the pickups. But what you don't know yet, but I know by the time you're watching this video, we actually already tried to change out those pickups. I should say Sean tried to change out those pickups. It turns out that after Sean went through the entire process of changing out those pickups, the neck pickup was defective. It just wasn't working. When you're watching this video, I have another set on order and we will try to video that one again. so it goes. I promised you that I would keep it real during this series, and there you go. There's some realism for you. Hope everybody's doing well, and everybody take care and keep it real. And I'll see you in the next video where we will be finally changing out the pickups.